Hey guys, Jofu here, welcome back to another LEGO Star Wars Skywalker Saga video. So today we're going to talk about vehicles, we're going to look into what's hot and what's not, discuss some tips and tricks to make space battles and random encounters more exciting, and then I'll leave you with my top pick, and then I'll leave it to you guys to tell me what you think. So to start off with, space mechanics aren't super complicated and combat isn't overly difficult, but there are a few ways you can make it feel sort of more realistic and a little more challenging. So my first tip is to pick a bigger vehicle, and it's really that simple because what you do is you give yourself a bigger hitbox, which means all those bolts that are usually flying past you or missing are now hitting you, and it really just gives you a good excuse to use all those dodge mechanics, and it's a lot of fun just trying to weave in and out of all that traffic. My only advice here is to not pick a vehicle that's going to shoot too slowly unless you really want that added challenge. But typically the bigger ships do a lot more damage than the smaller ones. And yes, they fly a bit slower, you don't really notice it too much, but I find that actually helps the handling because they just have that bit of a slower turning circle, which just allows you to be more accurate with your shots and you're not overturning like you would in the smaller ships, forever looking for somebody to shoot at. My second piece of advice is pick a bomber. They give you an infinite amount of proton torpedoes, so you'll never have to go out collecting them. So that'll help because whenever you start up the game you go into space, you'll always have 0 torpedoes. And yeah, it's not really that big of a deal, but if you get a capital ship that just rocks up randomly, you don't have to worry about too much dogfighting to collect those torpedoes because you can just go straight for their thrusters, straight for their towers, and you'll be able to make short work of those capital ships. The last thing to consider when you're picking out the vehicle you're going to main is how rapidly does it fire. So for example, the X-Wing just has 4 guns just rapidly firing all at once. It looks really cool with about 3 or 4 hits taking out any enemy. But choosing your vehicle is really going to come down to personal preference. For example, I was maining the Razor Crest just because I love the Razor Crest. But I did begin to notice there were certain differences between each vehicle, and not all of them are made equally. So as a few honourable mentions, a few vehicles worth considering are the Shuttles. In particular, I've been using the Theta Class T2C shuttle. It has a pretty average firing rate, and it's not going to give you those infinite proton torpedoes, but what you do get is a really fast ship that does max damage. And if that one's not to your liking, there's also the Kylo Ren shuttle. It works out about the same, it's very fast, it does max damage. It's got a really cool animation when you take off and land, and it's got a very clean, crisp look about it. We also have TIE bombers and Y-wings are also a really good selection. With both of those ships you get an average damage output, but seeing as how they're both bombers, the draw card is those infinite proton torpedoes. The GNK Droid Ship is a lot of fun if you just want to have a bit of a flex, and it is the hardest vehicle to unlock. So what you want to do is go into your menu, scroll down to the GNK Droid Ship, and just keep unlocking the rumors, track the missions, and fast travel to the destination. Rinse and repeat, and then once you've done all that, you'll have the GNK Droid Ship, and you'll be able to fly around that big tank that does max damage. Now, probably the biggest downside to the vehicles, and in particular vehicles like the Slave One, that just have those iconic and legendary weapons, is that you just can't use them, and that all the really good space battles are just cutscenes. But aside from the limited abilities of all ships, there was only a couple that I was actually genuinely disappointed with. And most notably, one of those was General Grievous's Soulless One. For the effort you have to go to unlock it, to the amount you have to pay to own it, I actually found it very underwhelming. Its rate of fire was really slow, and its damage output was on the lower end of the spectrum. But other than that, there's probably only one other vehicle I'd never use again, and that would have to be the YT-2400 Light Freighter. It's design actually based on the Millennium Falcon. It's a much smaller vehicle, it only seems to have one gun and it shoots at a very slow rate. And I've been really trying to keep an open mind with aesthetics as I go through all these ships, but this one just really doesn't do it for me. But hey, if you guys are game, go for it, sure, let me know how it goes. Now before I get to my number 1 pick, another honourable mention is the B-Wing. It's not as big as some of the ships, so it doesn't actually do max damage, but it does do quite a bit. It has a really solid rate of fire, with 2 front-forward facing cannons, and it's also a bomber, which is super handy because you get those infinite torpedoes. It comes with a really nice little animation when you take off and you land, but what's really cool about it is the animation it gets when it's speeding up and it slows down, sort of like how the X-Wings open and close their wings. These guys will actually tilt to one side, which is reminiscent of the Mantis out of Jedi Fallen Order. But to figure out what the best ship was, I had to do a fair bit of testing. So to do that, I would take ships out into random encounters to see their damage output, and to also get a feel for their maneuverability. Now there's a lot of ships out there that shoot max damage, but they do it at a slower rate, and there's a lot of ships that do medium or a smaller amount of damage, but at a much faster rate. So the best way to test this was to repeatedly go after the stud comets, and the quickest ship would be the most effective. And there was only one ship that stood head and shoulders above the rest. And that ship is the MG-100 Star Fortress. As a bomber, you get the infinite torpedoes. And as a heavy vehicle, all its damage is max damage. But its best quality is those 4 frontwards facing guns it shoots like an X-Wing. So you only really need to lock onto a target for one moment, and 9 times out of 10 they're gone. You can move on to the next thing. They absolutely obliterate the capital ships. And yeah, they're a bit slower, but it just makes it feel all the more intense when you've got all these TIE fighters and interceptors attacking you while you just ignore them. All you do is just duck and weave and dodge and dip and dive and dodge again. Because yeah, it's a bigger ship, so you're going to take more hits, but it's just a lot of fun. At least it was for me anyway. It just felt a little bit more realistic, and it lives up to my expectations of what space combat should be like. And I should also mention that unlocking this ship is really easy. All you have to do is complete the first mission in The Last Jedi, Dameron's Defiance. So yeah, I'll leave that with you guys. Next chance you get, unlock it. Have a go. Tell me what you think. And as always, if you're enjoying the content, make sure to like and subscribe. That helps out a great deal. I'm feeling like my next video is going to be about the capital ships and why. Just why they're stinky bananas on the Trade Federation ship. And believe me, there is an answer and I have it. Thanks again for all the support I received on the last video, which was the updated class rankings. And if you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's not a bad watch. But wherever you are, I hope you're having a good day or night, and I'll catch you guys next time.